to move into camera. Do we have to vote, like here? Vote, please. That passes. Bell is back. We're back in person. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting of Ajax Council is being held in a hybrid format with virtual and in-person participation by members of public, staff, and council. This meeting will also be live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. As this is not really our first meeting, but certainly is in our first stages of this new format and technology, please be patient with us if we encounter any technical or procedural challenges. Additionally, a friendly reminder to all participants to please use their mics at all times. And for any speakers, you'll have to get very close to the mic, if you don't mind. For the benefit of those in council chambers and those joining us remotely. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Our land acknowledgement. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated in the traditional and treaty territory of Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog's First Island, signatory of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and trauma of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward in kindness and respect as a community. Thank you. Okay, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll declare pecuniary interest on notice of motion item 10.2 as I am a veteran and have veteran plates on my vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerks, will I go through this closed session first before giving the mic to the mayor, or should I do the mayor first?
I would go to the mayor's remarks first.
Thank you. Mayor Collier, you have a few remarks this evening.
Thank you, Chair. And unfortunately, I have some sad news to share. We just received word this morning. Regional Councillor Dyes obviously is not in attendance tonight. This weekend, her husband Gary passed away at the Ajax Pickering Hospital after his very courageous battle with heart disease. I've known the Dyes for over 20 years, and this has been a constant challenge for Gary. On behalf of council, I'd like to extend our deepest condolences to Joanne and her family. I want to ask our community members, keep the Dyes family in your thoughts and prayers at this difficult time. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so as a council, we have the authority to hold a closed meeting session related to the in-camera session. Sorry, this has been a very emotional day for all of us today. It is moved by Mayor Collier and seconded by Councillor Henry to ratify the actions taken in the enclosed session. Your vote is open if I can have an all in favor. And that passes. Thank you. The adoption of the minutes is moved by Councillor Morin, seconded by Councillor Lee, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council be held on March 27th be adopted. If the vote is now open.
Sorry, slip of the finger. If you could just start that vote again.
And that passes. Thank you. Being that this is a public meeting, we have the public session now. Mr. Clerk?
We did not receive any requests to submit questions for question period.
Okay, thank you. Delegations. Our first delegation is with regards to intimate partner violence, an epidemic declaration, and I believe we have Laura Oliver here. Thanks, Laura. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor Collier and Council. My name is Laura Oliver. I represent the Violence Prevention Coordinating Council of Durham Region, and I would like to introduce to you virtually Bonnie Porter, who is the coordinator of the Violence Prevention Coordinating Council of Durham Region, if we happen to have her on. The VPCC of Durham is a network of 35 organizations and agencies committed to providing education, awareness, protection, and support to all women and girls so that they can live safely in their own homes and communities. Through the power of collaboration, the VPCC of Durham is determined to prevent and end violence against women and girls in all its forms. I would like to begin by exploring why we are here. On the morning of September 22nd, 2015, in rural Renfrew County, Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzik, and Natalie Warmeden were murdered by a man with whom each had had a relationship. The perpetrator was arrested that same day and has been imprisoned ever since. In 2019, the coroner's office announced that the province would hold an inquest into the murders. That inquest, the CKW inquest, took place in June of 2022. The 5-person jury, after listening to 3 weeks of testimony and reviewing voluminous written exhibits, returned with a verdict that included 86 recommendations. This evening, the VPCC of Durham is asking that you, Mayor and Council, pass a motion to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic and to include intimate partner violence in the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. What is intimate partner violence? Intimate partner violence refers to behaviors by an intimate partner or ex-partner that causes physical, sexual, or psychological harm, including physical aggression, sexual coercion, psychological abuse, and controlling behaviors. For the purposes of this evening and the motion before you, I would like to provide you with some facts. Every 3 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. 1 in 5 women experience some form of abuse in their intimate relationship. This past year alone, 52 women in Ontario, or 1 woman every week, were victims of femicide. 2 women have been killed in Renfrew County since December of 2022. So what does this mean for the town of Ajax? This particular slide here refers to shelter numbers across Durham Region and takes a closer look at Horizon House, a shelter situated right here in the town of Ajax. Throughout COVID-19, violence against women was often referred to as the pandemic within the pandemic. Intimate partner violence intensified because of lockdowns, stay-at-home orders that forced women to shelter in place with their abusers, a dangerous situation with no way to connect to the needed supports and services in their communities. The result of all of this is an inaccurate picture of the actual impact of intimate partner violence in Ajax, the region of Durham, Ontario, and Canada. Shelters faced the unique challenge of keeping women and children and their staff safe. Pandemic practices and protocols that included mask wearing, social distancing, contributed to challenges in maintaining programs, services, and staff, and influenced how services were being provided and how services were being accessed. This is clearly reflected in the increase in numbers by Horizon House this past fiscal year, a year where services are more or less fully open compared to the previous years with COVID constraints and lockdowns. This particular slide looks at numbers from Victim Services of Durham Region. To highlight, in 2021-22, Victim Services supported 4,438 victims of intimate partner violence, up 32% over 4 years, and supported 916 victims of sexual violence, up 277% over 4 years. From November 2022 to March 3rd, 23, there have been 3 femicides in Durham Region. An 8-year-old girl was killed by her father. Tal Lynn Cook and Katie Kantz were also killed. And Ajax remembers all too well, 5 years ago, on March 15th of 2018, the triple homicide of Krasimira Pejanovsky and her children Roy, 15, and Vanalia, 13, all victims of intimate partner homicide. And so, the VPCC of Durham asks you, Mayor Collier and Council, to pass this motion, requesting that the Province of Ontario and the Region of Durham declare intimate partner violence an epidemic, and that the Region of Durham integrates intimate partner violence into the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Thank you.
We do have a motion in tonight's agenda, and I'm going to go to questions, but would it be appropriate to move it up at this point and deal with it at this point? Okay, good. Did you have a question? Can you put your request in? Thanks.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Laura, for your incredible presentation. And I always say that when you hear these stories, everybody in this room thinks how horrible it is, but tomorrow morning you deal with it again, and the next morning you deal with it, and the next morning. So thank you, and everyone that works on these kind of things. Feels like I'm minimizing it. It's incredible. My question is, how are we doing as far as beds placement? Is it a question? Is Horizon House packed? Do you need more spaces? That's my question.
Certainly, today we do have Vanessa Faulkner here from Horizon House who could probably answer that question a whole lot better than myself. But I think that certainly Council has had conversations with Vanessa about, all through COVID about being, overflowing. Yep. And in fact, I believe that there was an emergency shelter that was opened up in the town of Ajax to house 30 extra individuals. So yes, I mean, the answer is a resounding yes, that all the shelters are full and...
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Oliver, for the presentation. It's always wonderful to see you. Wish it was better under more fun circumstances, but this is a very serious issue. My question is ultimately, is there a set day or a month where intimate partner violence, we can bring attention to it, awareness? More specifically, we can kind of highlight the long-term supports available to victims of intimate partner violence.
Sorry, you're wondering if there's a particular day?
Yeah, so I think like Bell Let's Talk, I think it's like the last Wednesday in January.
So certainly there's International Women's Day on March the 8th. And in December, there is the National Awareness of the Elimination of Violence Against Women Day. And all of those days are entirely important, but action needs to be taken. We've had a number of inquests over many years now where recommendations have come out and no action has been taken. And so now we find ourselves where we're, seeing this as an epidemic. So we all need to work together as a community to actually come up with solutions which actually have been put forward. So it's just about instituting some of those recommendations.
Perfect. Thank you for the answer, and I look forward to supporting this motion when it comes before us. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Henry.
No. Do you want me to go with it? Okay.
Sorry, are you going to do the motion right now?
Yeah.
I just had one comment before you do that, if that's okay. It seems to me when we hear police reports, we get probably monthly reports at Regional Council, that this is one of the hardest areas to actually document numbers, because typically people who experience violence in the home are embarrassed to come forward and to report it. And so I would almost maybe say that your numbers are almost artificially low, because we really don't know how many people this does affect. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I would say that is a very fair statement, and there's so many different reasons why women don't report. That can include, some of cultural beliefs and not being believed, and fear and intimidation and bullying. So there's so many different reasons. So for sure, it is something that historically has been underreported.
This is being identified differently, correctly? Like, wasn't it identified as domestic violence in the past? And just recently, we had our new police chief come and I thought it was a different crime, to be honest with you. I didn't realize that they had changed the names. Do you know the reason for that?
The reason for that really is that words matter, and domestic has that domestic feel to it, or married feel, or relationship feel to it, and domestic workers, that kind of thing. And a language was trying to be brought forth that more reflected what the violence was. So it is violence in of an intimate nature, and so the language has been changed to reflect that.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. We do have a motion. We're gonna deal with it now. We're bringing it forward. Moved by Councillor Henry and seconded by myself. Go ahead, Councillor Henry.
Partner violence is physical, sexual, and emotional abuse and aggression that occurs in an intimate relationship. Whereas on the morning of September 22nd, 2015, Carol Cullington, Anastasia Kuzak, and Natalie Warmington were murdered by a former partner. Whereas on June 28th, 2022, a 5-person jury established as a part of the coroner's quest into the events of September 22nd, 2015, delivered 86 recommendations. And whereas specific legislation addressing family and domestic violence has been passed by 6 provinces and 3 territories, however, Ontario has not implemented this type of legislation. And whereas the Violence Prevention Coordination Council of Durham, VPCC, which represents 35 local agencies, including Luke's Place, Horizon House, and Durham Rape Crisis Center, reported a significant increase in demand for assistance from local IPV support providers on behalf of the members and victim services of Durham Region. With IPV victim support up to 32% over 4 years and sexual violent victim support up 277% over 4 years. And whereas the City of Oshawa, Ruffin County, and Lanark County have passed motions declaring an IPV epidemic and acknowledge the 86 recommendations in the Renfrew County inquest. Whereas it be resolved that 1, Ontario government declare IPV epidemic as per recommendation 1 of Renfrew County inquest, and 2, the region of Durham declare IPV epidemic and integrate IPV into the region's community safety and well-being plan, and as per recommendation 10 of the Renfrew County inquest. And 3, the motion be distributed to the Ajax MPP Patrice Barnes, the Ministry of Attorney General, and the Ministry of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity, the region of Durham, the Durham Municipalities, Renfrew County, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I can speak to this first. I didn't know if I'd be able to get through reading this tonight, and I'm glad that I could. My mother, who recently passed on February 17th, was a victim of violence for many, many years. My first Christmas memory is her laying in the bathtub with broken ribs, calling to me for help. This went on for most of my life until I left home at 17. I know firsthand what this life is like, watching my mother go through it and not being able to save her. To her very last week of life, even though my father had been gone 20 years or more, she spoke of the violence she endured over time with her PSWs on a regular basis. The numbers are shocking. The fact that it's still occurring is shocking. Living through it is something I wish upon no woman. I would ask that you all support this motion this evening.
Councillor Lee, I see your name here. Are you all right if I speak as a seconder? Okay. We should all feel safe in our homes. We should all not be afraid to come home. We shouldn't be afraid to have our husbands come home. We shouldn't be afraid of what kind of shape that they come in. We shouldn't be afraid in our own house. I just wanted to let you know that this exact motion is going forward to Durham Region in this exact format. It's been submitted already, so it will be dealt with at Regional Council. That's all I have to say. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillors Henry and Regional Councillor Crawford for bringing this to Council. I absolutely think this is an epidemic that needs to be addressed. The numbers don't lie. What is it? 277% over 4 years. It's up. And to Regional Councillor Crawford's point earlier, those are underreported numbers. And so that's an incredibly scary fact. If I recall, I think just under a month ago, I think a Toronto police officer was actually failed to properly investigate an intimate violence partner case, and that woman was shot and killed only days later. So this is something that needs as much attention as soon as possible, and I very much am proudly standing beside my council colleagues in supporting this. Thank you, Chair.
So we have a motion before you, moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by myself. The vote is open. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. Yes, well done. We have now a delegation and proclamation for Youth Week 2023. Ashley, you can come on up with your group.
Good evening, Mayor Collier, members of council, town staff and residents. Thank you for welcoming us here tonight. My name is Ashley McWhirter, and I am the Community Recreation Supervisor for Youth Development within the Recreation and Culture Department. Working with members of our Youth Engagement Advisory Committee, or YEAC for short, we strive to create positive opportunities for youth by providing them with quality programs, spaces, and services in their community, such as the annual Youth Week event. Many of our youth events and programs have been influenced by youth from the YEAC and from our youth spaces and hubs to procure participation and interest. I would like to introduce two YEAC members, Anthony Baptiste Caliste and Martel Wittick, to highlight the work of the committee that the committee has accomplished so far this year and to elaborate on Youth Week and our Mental Health Youth Symposium event.
Thank you, Ashley. Good evening, my name is Anthony Baptiste Caliste, and I'm a grade 11 student attending Ajax High School. I am a member of the Town of Ajax's Youth Engagement Advisory Committee. I represent Ajax Youth, and I'm also a member of the Student and Music Council at Ajax High. The Youth Engagement Advisory Committee has had a busy and fulfilling year. I am glad to see that youth are given a chance to be viewed as leaders through the YEAC and through the work that we do. In October, we hosted our annual Haunted House event, which was a huge success. We had the opportunity to share feedback in multiple talent facilitated surveys, including Action 26, Ajax Council Strategic Plan, St. Francis Strategic Plan, and the e-bicycles and e-scooters survey. In January and February, the YEAC collaborated with Durham Youth Services to collect donations and build winter care packages for local youth in need. Donations were collected from Audley Recreation Center, Ajax Community Center, and McLean Community Center. Our goal for this year was to build 50 bags with winter care essentials, and we surpassed that goal by building 75 bags. There were additional items collected that couldn't fit into the bags and were taken back to shelter for distribution. We continue to discuss what makes Ajax a youth-friendly community, how youth can support youth, and how we can continue to build youth involvement in areas of employment and volunteering. Thank you for this opportunity and for your continued support of the youth in Ajax. Martel will now speak about Youth Week.
Good evening. My name is Martel Wittick. I am a grade 11 student attending Pickering High School. I am a student ambassador for my school, a member of the Music Council and Math Club. I volunteered for the Town of Ajax Playgrounds program, Canada Day events, and TD Summer Reading Club program, and I'm currently a member of the Youth Engagement Advisory Committee. Youth Week is a provincial celebration of youth, held annually during the first week of May. It is a fun, interactive celebration intended to build strong connections between youth and their communities. Meaningful youth engagement through recreation emphasizes access, equity, social justice, and leads to positive youth development. National Youth Week reminds us of the valuable contributions that recreation and culture can make to youth development and that youth make to their community. The Town of Ajax celebrates Youth Week by offering free programs such as drop-in sports, dance workshops, and youth-based activities such as art, tournaments, prizes, and a youth symposium. This year, the YEAC decided the symposium should focus on mental health awareness. Fortunately, it also takes place during National Mental Health Week. The Mental Health Youth Symposium event will be held on Thursday, May 4th, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Audley Recreation Center. The guest speakers at the event are two members from the charity called Jack.org. This is a charity that trains and empowers youth to have a positive impact on mental health in their communities. They are working towards a Canada where all young people understand how to take care of their own mental health and how to look out for others. A Canada without shame, and where all those that need support get what they deserve. We are looking forward to hearing of these stories. For more details on Youth Week events and activities, please visit ajax.ca/youthweek. On behalf of all Ajax youth, I express my thanks for this opportunity and your gracious support in proclaiming May 1st to the 7th as Youth Week in Ajax. Thank you.
Well done. I have a proclamation here that the Corporation of the Town of Ajax hereby proclaims May 1st to the 7th as Youth Week, presented on behalf of the Mayor and Ajax Council. If you'd like to all join me in the front, we're going to get a picture. I failed to ask for questions. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Martel, Anthony, I'm going to call you back just for a very quick second. Every year you guys do this presentation. Every year we're incredibly excited for Youth Week, but I always ask the question back. All right, we have 2 youth. You guys seem pretty involved, pretty connected. It's amazing. What can we do, these elected officials in front of you right now, to support youth better? We always have the lowest turnout and voter rates for youth, and realistically, if all the youth voted, you guys would run the table and run policy. So, putting you on the spot, you guys didn't prepare for this. What do you guys think we can do to help youth better?
One thing that I definitely think that we could do in order to help promote Youth Week and make it better for youth, definitely would be just promotion. Definitely that's one key thing that I feel like, at least for me and a bunch of people that I know, just isn't there right now. Definitely on platforms where teens are on a lot could work. That could be social media. That could be on certain news sites that are popular for youth and formats and platforms like that.
Okay, that's great feedback. So not MySpace is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I don't think that would work for this group.
Okay. Thank you for that. And yeah, hopefully our communications team can take that back and possibly put a big splash on our Ajax webpage about Youth Week. But I'm sure I speak for all of us. We're very much looking forward to support you guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions? No? Okay. All right, next we have the presentation from the Durham Meadowway Vision Study Update. Who am I looking for? I have.
Aaliyah, you should be able to share your screen at this time.
Okay, there we go.
And we can see it. Aaliyah and others from the region of Durham, for your presentation, in the middle of the screen that you see, there's a bar in the middle with a head with lines kind of emanating from it. That's the button to activate your microphone. Aaliyah, if you want to hit that button one more time. And your mic is now active, Aaliyah. Oh. Okay, your mic is active, and we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Should I start from the top?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Council. I'm very excited to be here this evening to give you an update on the Durham Meadowway Visioning Study. We only have 10 minutes and there's a lot to cover. So I'll just be providing some very high-level details. There is a link to the project webpage at the very end of this presentation deck. There's a lot more information on that page. So the Durham Meadowway is a proposed active transportation corridor and green space that will connect all the way from the boundary of Rouge National Urban Park in the city of Pickering across to Harmony Road in the city of Oshawa, connecting 4 municipalities, many different neighborhoods, communities, institutions, commercial areas, and green spaces across approximately 30 kilometers of the Gatineau Hydro Corridor. The idea of a trail within the Hydro Corridor has quite a long history. It dates back to a submission from the region to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing back in 2005. Today, you can find alignments for trails within the Hydro Corridor in the Integrated Transportation and Active Transportation Master Plan of all 4 municipalities. And you can also find a notional alignment within for the trail within the Durham Transportation Master Plan. So there are 4 main objectives for the Durham Meadowway Visioning Study. So the first is to develop a coordinated vision and guiding principles to help support decision-making throughout the planning and design of the multi-use path. We're also hoping through this project, and we'll be able to show you a little bit more detail on this later in this presentation, a functional alignment for the multi-use trail. So it's still fairly high level, but more realistic in terms of where the trail will actually go within the hydro corridor and into the surrounding community where it needs to leave the hydro corridor to navigate around different barriers like busy road crossings. Through the visioning study, we also hope to articulate the potential experiences, activities, amenities, and gateways that could be programmed or that could evolve over time at locations along the corridor. And lastly, we'll be developing illustrations that will provide an idea of the overall look and feel of the future Durham Meadoway. So the region began planning for this project back in 2020. We did background research, we created an existing conditions report, and started analysis of the different potential route options. But the Durham Meadoway Visioning Study itself kicked off in October of last year and is anticipated to run through until October of this year. In phase one of the project, the main focuses were developing the vision and guiding principles for the project and identifying various route options and evaluating those options. In phase two, which is the phase that we're in right now, the main focus is developing an amenities and programming concept plan as well as concept illustrations. And then phase three will be the wrap up of the project, and that will take place through the summer and into the fall. So we'll be finalizing the final Durham Meadoway Visioning Study report and providing a round of final presentations to councils and committees at both levels of government. Okay, so I'm just going to discuss here a little bit about what we've completed so far in the project. A large focus of phase one of the visioning study was community engagement. We held 2 open houses, which had 130 attendees. We had an online survey that ran through until February of this year. We had 285 submissions through that survey. We've held 3 municipal and agency stakeholder working group meetings to work through aspects of the project, such as the vision and the route options. And then we've presented at a number of council and committees. To reach the general public, we employed a variety of communications tactics, obviously social media, but another big one for us was direct mail to 53,000 households within the greater study area around the hydro corridor. We also reached out to Metroland Media, and they did a great news story on us right before the open houses, which was a really great promotion for those activities. And if you go to the Durham Meadoway Visioning Study webpage, you can find an engagement summary that summarizes those engagement activities, as well as the major themes of what we heard from all of our stakeholders, agency stakeholders, area municipal, as well as the general public. And there's a link there to the page where you can find that report. So also within phase one, we changed the study area boundary. Since 2020, we've been working with the idea of the study area ending on Simcoe Street in Oshawa. So at the request of the City of Oshawa, we actually extended the study area boundary further east to Harmony Road to provide opportunities to connect to local trails that will lead down in the future to the Kedron development area. We've also been working on identifying that preferred route for the Durham Meadoway, so the route that will provide the best continuous end-to-end connection based on what's known at the time of this study. And that preferred route will be subject to further technical studies later down the road. In some cases where segments of the preferred route will take a long time to implement, we've also identified some interim routes to provide more immediate connectivity. And as I mentioned, one of the other big activities within phase one was then evaluating those different route options. So we developed, with the input of our stakeholders, this route evaluation criteria. There are 3 major buckets here. So we're looking at criteria with respect to how the trail will interact with nature. We heard through the public engagement that while the public was really excited about the opportunity to go into this wonderful green space and enjoy recreational activities, they also want to make sure that the trail minimizes impact on the natural environment and is compatible with it. There are a lot of criteria here around user experience, such as providing a route that is direct and easy to follow, and that creates opportunities for programming amenities and gateways, so that it's not just a convenient active transportation connection, but also a destination in and of itself. And then we also looked at infrastructure considerations. So whether or not the multi-use trail would be compatible with planned road and infrastructure projects, as well as potential for compatibility with Hydro One Network Inc.'s technical requirements for development within the hydro corridor. So through our analysis, 6 key evaluation areas emerged. They were at Altorna Road, Whites Road, around the Cherrywood Transformer Station, east of Brock Road, Highway 412, and then Ashburn Road to Lynn Creek. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Chris now, who is with us to discuss the segments that are within Town of Ajax and the preferred route that has been selected within those segments.
Okay, thank you, Ilya. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we do.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. So I'll start with segment 4, which is from Valley Farm Road to Church Street, so just straddling the Ajax-Pickering boundary. We have 2 options here for the trail alignment. And this is where we have a situation where we're recommending a preferred alignment that's longer term, but we can use an interim alignment in the shorter term. So the interim alignment would be along Rosslyn Road, where there's an existing path in the boulevard, and then using a portion of the Trans-Canada Trail that extends north of Riverside, and then going into the hydro corridor there. Longer term, we'd like to have the trail in the hydro corridor itself, but there is quite a, as some of you know, it's pretty hilly in that section of the hydro corridor. And just to maybe spend money elsewhere where we have gaps in connectivity, we can maybe do that section longer term. So this is a recommended alignment for interim, and then preferred within the hydro corridor. Next slide. So segment 5 is Church Street to Harwood Avenue. So we're coming off of the Trans-Canada, or using the Trans-Canada Trail. And I know that the town has in their budget a planned crossing of Church Street at the hydro corridor, which is great. And then there's also a planned path going to Paulin Park. And we'd like to, that would be a great section for the Meadowway that's already kind of in your capital program and budget. So that will connect us to Paulin Park and use the hydro corridor lands. And Paulin Park is partly on hydro corridor lands as an existing lease. And then we are proposing to cross Ravenscroft. And then there is a planned north-south connection, I think, on Ravenscroft that we'll connect to. That's going to be built pretty soon, I think. So that would be great. And then we have an interface opportunity with the neighborhood to the south, kind of from Atherton Park. So we'll go through that area and then connect to Westney and Taunton, and then use the existing Taunton Road multi-use path. The hydro corridor does extend north of Taunton, as you know, into across the railway and into the Deer Creek lands, but those form some barriers to actually getting the trail through. Next slide. So our route in this section is along Taunton Road. So we're going to use the existing facility. There are a few cross rides that were installed to make the pedestrian and cycling experience a little safer. And the idea is to maybe enhance this area a little bit, but use the same facilities because we have a great connection there already. This is the section from Harwood to Audley, and there's some good connections north-south, like Harwood that has a planned multi-use path when it gets reconstructed. There's a few other off-road trails that connect to this. Next slide, segment 7. And then there's an area here just at the Whitby-Ajax boundary near Lake Ridge, where we have a segment from Audley to Coronation, and we're actually proposing to use Taunton, and I guess there's a little section missing between Audley and Lake Ridge for a multi-use path, but we know that's kind of in the plans, so we'd like to use that alignment. But then instead of crossing Highway 412 on Taunton, we've had some discussions at preliminary level with MTO, and there is a creek crossing at Highway 412 that we'd like to use. And then we can also use some lands that are actually provincially owned associated with the future commuter lot transitway station, and then cross into Whitby from there. So that is our preferred alignment, and we think this will really provide a good experience. And MTO said it's likely this is more feasible in the shorter term than actually having, the 412, although it is on their radar, but that facility across there, because it would probably be a bigger expense. And this actually gets you in a more pleasant experience as well. So I'll hand it over back to Leah to talk about what we've been working on along with the alignments.
Thanks, Chris. So in phase 2 of the project, one of the big focuses is developing that amenities and programming plan. So for some clarity here, we are not designing amenities such as seating areas or play areas, or identifying exactly where wayfinding will go. But through the amenities and programming plan, we're really hoping to identify the opportunities to incorporate these features that will really help to make the Durham Meadoway not just a special and memorable place for tourists, but also for residents of the region. So some of the things that are being considered within that, in addition to seating areas and play areas, are locations for public and community art, opportunities to use lighting both in utilitarian as well as decorative ways, as well as nodes and other sort of temporary events and activities that could be implemented on a seasonal basis. One of the really wonderful ideas that our consultant team has brought to the table is this idea of identifying focal points. So focal points are places along the hydro corridor where there's already a natural convergence of different amenities and active transportation facilities. So the idea is to build on these areas and to incorporate expanded opportunities for amenities and programming to create these very memorable spots along the hydro corridor. So the one that they have identified in Ajax is around Paulin Park. So there are some opportunities here to create active play spaces, to use strategic plantings to really enhance the natural experience of the hydro corridor, opportunities perhaps for bike repair stations, as well as special wayfinding public art to help foster a sense of place at that location. And lastly, in this phase of the project, the consultant team is creating those visualizations for us. So this will happen in 2 stages. Right now, there's an example on the left-hand side of the screen of the concept sketches that have been produced. So this is phase 1 of the visualizations. In phase 2, we'll be taking 6 of those 10 initial concept sketches and creating 3D renders. So while we don't have examples of those to share right now, I have included some screenshots on the right-hand side of artwork by the same artist who's doing the visualizations, just to give you a sense of what those will look like once they're complete. In terms of what's next, we will be hosting the next and final open house next week on the evening of April 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. at regional headquarters at 605 Rossland Road East in Whitby. Rossland Road West in Whitby. There'll be 2 presentations, one at 6:20 and again, the same presentation at 7:20. We heard some feedback from participants at the last open house that they really desired a presentation component of the evening, so we've incorporated that this time around. At the open house, we'll be presenting the preferred route as well as the interim routes, concept sketches, and the draft plan for user experience, amenities, and activities. We'll also be providing the Region's Planning and Economic Development Committee with a project update via an information report over the coming weeks. And then we'll begin working on that Durham Meadoway Visioning Study report and the final round of presentations to councils and committees, which will hopefully start happening at the area municipal level as we move towards summer, and then we'll go to regional council in the fall. So thank you very much. That's it from me.
Do we have any questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. If there's no questions, I have a question. I'm just wondering if any of the 3 presenters have ever rode your bike along the Taunton pathway at all. Because I have, and the absolute worst connection is Harwood and Taunton when you're riding a bike. So if you haven't, I would challenge you to go on that trail system and hit Harwood, because it's a tight turn and then it's a tight turn back onto the trail system, and it's not user friendly in the least. But that was my question.
Thank you. In the before the project formally kicked off, we did do field visits, so we do have some experience on foot within that section. Chris has just made himself visible, so I get the sense that he has some detail to add here as well.
Yeah, sure. We know that the area of Taunton Road near Harwood and where the rail crossing is, and you have to go under. It's very tight in there. And we also know that there are some enhancements that can be made with regards to where you have some private driveway entrances and there's not very good signage or, painting. As I mentioned, we did have some cross rides that were put in last year at a few of the intersections, but there are other intersections where those kinds of enhancements and the wayfinding could be improved for sure. The Harwood situation with the rail bridge is a bit tricky, but we would like to hopefully in time take a look at it and see if we can do anything, save and rebuilding the structure. But there could be something there we can do to help. It won't be perfect, but maybe improve that connection because it's not the best experience.
Yeah, it's rough with no cars, but if you have a car coming on up Harwood, making a right-hand turn onto Taunton, it literally blocks any entrance onto the trail entrance. Like this, you have to get onto the sidewalk, turn, and then get onto the trail. So it can be, I think it's dangerous. I mean, you have all the lights up there where it says that, if you're on a multi-use trail, you don't even have to dismount. But on that particular intersection, I think it's the only way you can do it safely. Anyway, that's my only comments. I'm not sure if no one else has any comments. Thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have the Ajax Arts and Culture Plan update. Robert Gruber, you are up, my friend.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor Collier, members of council, senior staff, and guests. It's my pleasure to be here tonight with our consultants from Nordicity, who will be providing an update to you on the progress of developing a new arts and culture plan for the town. As you know, it's been 6 years since we completed the 10-year integrated community arts and culture plan, and through federal funding, we have been able to embark on a new 10-year plan that will better reflect the current and future arts and cultural needs, opportunities, priorities, and goals of our community. We have gone through a successful and insightful community consultation phase, which has resulted in the information that will be presented tonight. So with that, I'd like to introduce Louisa Plant and Mila Deshef-Tweddle from Nordicity, who will share with you what we heard and how that has translated into a preliminary plan vision, goals, and what our next steps are.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I'm just going to share my screen. Wanted to check that you can see my presentation. Just 1 second, please.
Yes, we can see it.
Can you see that okay? Excellent. Great. So as mentioned, my name is Louisa Plant and I'm project managing the plan from Nordicity's side. I'm joining you from Vancouver, which is on the traditional, ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam nations. To introduce Nordicity, we're a global consulting firm that specialises in the arts, culture and digital media sectors. We have offices in Toronto, Vancouver and in London in the UK. We've worked on cultural plans for a number of municipalities across Canada, including the City of Brampton, the town of Innisfil and the City of Victoria. So the aim of the plan is to create a 10-year arts, culture and creative placemaking strategy for the town of Ajax. The key objectives are to develop a community-informed definition of culture, to highlight needs, gaps and opportunities, and to create a roadmap for implementation. We are now in the later phases of the project and we're about to start drafting the plan. The findings that we're about to share are based on desk research and community engagement activities. As you see here on screen, this has included a survey, 4 targeted focus groups, interviews, and a community consultation event, and that all took place between February and March. So before we dive into sharing the findings, I'd like to just recap some of the context for the plan. So, sorry, bear with me one moment. Apologies. I'm just having a slight technical issue. I will be one moment. So we know that Ajax is growing fast, and it grew by about 6% in 5 years. And if the growth continues at this rate, it's estimated that population will reach just under 135,000 residents by 2026. Although the average age is relatively young, the number of older residents is growing faster than any other age group. The 55 plus age group grew by over 60% between 2011 and 2021. Ajax has a diverse community, and according to census data, 42% of residents are immigrants to Canada versus 28% average in the Durham region. However, 92% of all Ajax residents are citizens, showing that most immigrants now living in Ajax have been settled in Canada for a long time. Now, I'll share strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing arts and culture in Ajax based on the research. Ajax's diverse community is a strength, and the town has a wealth of cultures from all over the world. It has an interesting history. Whether military history or Indigenous history, there's a huge range of fantastic things to draw upon. St. Francis Centre was mentioned in many of our engagement activities as a good, dedicated and attractive cultural facility with high quality programming. There's arts and culture throughout the town, including murals, and supported policy to encourage it. Pickering Village was mentioned as a strength by many participants for its heritage, and there are many popular festivals and events hosted by the town and third parties, such as Pickering Village Jam, Carrifest, and Pumpkinville. Ajax offers a high quality of life with easy access to nature, including at the stunning Ajax waterfront, which is unique in the region. There are designated municipal roles for arts and culture in the town administration, with the community and cultural development team. There's existing interest in arts and culture with some established nonprofit groups and businesses such as Pine Ridge Arts Council, Ajax Creative Arts, and Arts on Fire. On the other side of the coin though, Ajax is currently not well known for arts and culture, and it can be fighting the perception that there's little on offer. And this relates to a low awareness of what is available. So over a quarter of survey respondents indicated that they don't know where to find information on offerings. And this also points to a lack of engagement to seek out that information. There's a need for expanded representation and inclusiveness of arts and culture offerings. And when asked whether they experience any barriers to participating in arts and culture, participants who were identified as Black or racialized in the survey were more likely to say that they didn't feel represented in the activities available. There are also few dedicated spaces for arts and culture, and there's not a central cultural hub in the town. 60% of survey participants saw cultural space as a critical issue, citing the need for rehearsal and creation space, as well as exhibition and performance space. There's less programming targeting young adults versus other groups, such as families and seniors. And there are also capacity limitations within the sector, so this is in relation to limited funding or staff for arts organisations. We also heard that there are transportation challenges and a reliance on cars because several key locations are far apart. There's also a commonly mentioned issue of a lack of parking, particularly for large-scale events. In terms of threats, Ajax could miss economic opportunities if it overlooks arts and culture's potential role in contributing to wider community priorities. For example, the arts could play a strong role in developing a creative hub and attracting residents and visitors. Related to this point, youth and creative talent could move away from Ajax or just not choose to move there if they want somewhere with a more vibrant cultural scene. There can be a lack of understanding from some residents on the importance of arts and culture investment. And also, Ajax residents are currently spending money on arts and culture elsewhere in some instances, with people mentioning Oshawa and also sometimes Pickering. There's also a risk of unattractive urban development, which lacks a sense of place if creativity and placemaking isn't a priority. There's low engagement with Indigenous communities, especially the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, which could limit reconciliation efforts and also the richness of sharing and celebrating Indigenous culture. But thinking about the other side of the coin, opportunities, arts and culture could help celebrate what makes Ajax special, and arts and culture initiatives could be used to identify, grow, and share the unique mix of cultural heritage which exists within Ajax. Ajax can enhance community cohesion and understanding by offering shared cultural experiences and cultural exchange. There's also an opportunity to celebrate local artists by developing more programs and grants to support their work. The town could leverage the success of its events to offer more varied and diverse range of arts and culture experiences. For example, in large events like Winterfest, bringing in more arts and culture elements within that. The town could also support the arts and culture sector through a variety of new mechanisms. So, for example, grants or even facilitating networking opportunities. Ajax could also create an arts and culture hub with dedicated spaces to put community arts more firmly on the map. And arts and culture can be used to develop attractive spaces with a sense of place. So thinking beyond public art only, also to how spaces are designed and what happens within them. There's an opportunity in this to integrate the arts more deeply with other strategies such as economic development, the Recreation and Parks Master Plan, and tourism. For example, offering cultural activities before and after sporting events to encourage longer visitor stays. Additionally, the town could help meet future labour market needs by upskilling the large youth population in creative skills. And with all this in mind, we have some preliminary strategic goals to share with you. And to get to that, this is the structure that the plan will take. So it will begin with a vision for arts and culture in Ajax, followed by strategic goals. And there will be objectives linked to each goal, and each objective will have a set of specific actions. And the plan itself will include an implementation roadmap with details which will include the target outcomes, key performance indicators, roles and responsibilities, timeframe, and also an indication of the resources needed. So starting at the top of this, to inform the vision for the Arts and Culture Plan, we asked participants how they would like to describe arts and culture in Ajax in 10 years. And keywords were diverse, progressive, accessible, vibrant, and abundant. So based on this and other research findings, we've drafted this vision statement, which builds on the successful Ajax for All multicultural campaign, which has been widely loved and also mentioned by several participants. So it reads, Ajax is abundant with innovative, exciting, and accessible arts and culture experiences, representing the diverse mix of people and cultures that call the town home. Whether residents or visitors, arts and culture makes Ajax for all. Now to the goals. As you see from this slide, I won't go through all of it for the sake of time, but from the identified needs that we found in the community engagement, we use these to directly inform the main goals that I will talk through now. The first goal is using arts and culture to celebrate Ajax's difference and diversity. And this goal involves identifying what makes Ajax unique and using that uniqueness as the foundation for strategic community development. Arts and culture in their different forms offer a powerful way to make Ajax's personality more visible and to offer cultural exchange among residents. The next goal is to co-create festivals, events, and programs. And the purpose of this goal is to build on Ajax's existing successes to attract residents and to attract more visitors. Also, co-creating events with community partners will enable the town to diversify its events and programming, addressing underrepresentation of some equity priority groups. As you see on the right, this goal relates to existing priorities identified in the Ajax Tourism Plan and the Diversity and Community Engagement Plan, among others. The third goal relates to making more space for arts and culture in Ajax. And the purpose is to ensure that there are accessible spaces which meet the needs of the community. So as mentioned, more creation space, rehearsal space, as well as exhibition and performing space. And this would also support the needs of the local arts and culture sector specifically. Thinking about communications, the fourth goal involves creating innovative and compelling communications to grow engagement with arts and culture in Ajax. Doing so will build Ajax's reputation for innovative and exciting arts and culture. And this goal will involve tailoring communications to reach different audiences. So, for example, experimenting with different platforms and approaches, whether that's for youth, seniors, or young adults and everybody else within the community. The fifth goal is creative placemaking to support economic development and tourism. By using arts and culture to beautify and build a sense of place in public spaces and places, Ajax can encourage more visitors, new residents, and investment. All of this will help to grow a reputation for diverse creativity. Ultimately, this goal is about creating memorable places that people want to visit and where they want to spend time. And last but not least, the sixth goal is to bolster the town of Ajax support for the local arts and culture sector. The purpose is to strengthen the sector by helping arts organisations to build organisational capacity. So that's about helping them build relationships to address sector silos. So bringing people together who work in arts and culture to collaborate on sharing knowledge, and also looking at new opportunities for grants, for example. And the town can also help organisations by encouraging higher levels of volunteering and different types of volunteering as well within the sector. Before I wrap up and we move to questions, here's a quick outline of next steps. We will be fleshing out the goals and their related objectives and actions later this month, and we will submit the draft plan to the town of Ajax in mid-May. After that, we look forward to presenting the final arts and culture plan to you in June. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gruber, did you have anything else to add?
No, or just if anybody has any questions, comments, we're happy to take them.
Do we have any questions tonight? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting. I loved it. So I was just looking at the community engagement at a glance on page 5 of the presentation, and you mentioned 4 targeted focus groups. What were those groups, and what were the findings, or predominantly the findings from those groups?
Sure. So,
go ahead, Louisa.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so the groups were obviously with the arts and culture sector. That was one of them. We had a group with youth and seniors. We had a group with organisations that represent equity priority groups, or groups that are underrepresented culturally within arts and culture as well. And then another with staff at the town of Ajax.
Yeah, and through the chair, the findings were pretty much what the consultants have presented tonight. There were comments on capacity building, there were comments on communication, marketing, promotions. So all of that is captured in here. And so I feel like and I was at all of the focus groups, which, to be able as staff to hear that firsthand is really good, because I think then we can formulate with the consultants some great objectives and deliverables that will be able to meet some of the needs of all of the different groups that we saw.
Wonderful, thank you. And I was very glad to see the mention of Pat Bailey Square.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say that we love our mural in the village, and I would love to see more of those all over town. I think it was a really nice addition. So thank you for your presentation. I don't think there's any action, right? Nope, just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to a public meeting for PDS 2022-16 Official Plan Amendment Application, OPA 21-A3. Keep going. Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application, Z5/21, Matrix Development Group, 101 Pickering Beach Road, and 235 Bailey Street East. I'm handing.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, and I'll turn it over to Sean Jeffrey, who is our planner this evening that worked on the file.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Go right ahead.
Thank you. How's the audio? I'm going to try to strike a balance between hunching over here and being heard. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, Council, department heads, and members of the public who are attending today. My name is Sean Jeffrey, planner for the town of Ajax. Bruno Scopacasa, sitting over here, and I have been responsible for processing the development applications submitted by Bousfields Inc. on behalf of Matrix Development Group. So my presentation will provide an overview of the development proposal and submitted applications, an evaluation of the proposal and related land use planning policy context, and we'll provide an outline and address comments that have been received regarding the proposal. So this meeting will also serve as a statutory public meeting where residents are able to address council and town staff about the proposed development and the submitted official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Tonight, council is also being asked to make a decision on these applications. A site plan application has also been submitted, which is currently under review by town staff. The review of this application is focused on engineering, landscaping, and other detailed matters, and the approval of this application is delegated to the Director of Planning. So the subject lands are located at the southeast corner of Bailey Street East and Pickering Beach Road and are 1.14 hectares in area. The subject lands have approximately 195 meters of frontage along Bailey Street East, 81 meters along Pickering Beach Road, and 71 meters along Powers Valley Court. These subject lands are surrounded by the following land uses. Immediately to the north is Bailey Street East. Further north are lands designated environmental protection with a provincially significant wetland, which are owned by the town. To the east is the Carruthers Creek and associated valley lands of the wetland complex that are designated environmental protection. These lands are both privately owned and owned by the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. Continuing east are residential lands consisting of townhouse dwellings that front onto the north side of Powers Valley Court. Immediately to the south is Powers Valley Court. Across Powers Valley Court are residential lands consisting of townhouses. Further south are townhouse and single detached dwellings associated with the Conservatory Group residential subdivision. Directly to the west is Pickering Beach Road. Across Pickering Beach Road is an Esso gas station and townhouse dwellings associated with the Conservatory Group residential subdivision. The subject lands are currently designated high-density residential, medium-density residential, and environmental protection within the Town of Ajax official plan. The subject lands are also located at the intersection of two regional corridors, Bailey Street East and Salem Road South. The MDR designation permits duplex dwellings, block townhouses, street townhouses, stacked townhouses, attached housing, walk-up apartments, and other moderately formed forms of scaled housing within a density range of 30 to 75 units per net hectare. The maximum height shall generally be between 3 and 6 stories for this designation. The HDR designation permits stacked townhouses, back-to-back townhouses, and apartments, and other forms of high-density housing within a density range of between 60 and 185 units per net hectare. Dwelling units and buildings within the HDR designation shall generally be between a minimum of 4 stories to 15 stories. The land use goals for the EP designated lands are to protect, enhance, and restore natural heritage features. The subject lands are currently zoned Institutional A and Agricultural A in the Town of Ajax zoning bylaw 95-2003 as amended. The northern portion of the subject lands is zoned agricultural, and the south portion is zoned Institutional A. The Institutional A zone permits a community center, crisis care facility, daycare facility, library, nursing home, place of worship, and a school. The agricultural zone permits agricultural operations, detached dwelling, resource management uses, and a seasonal farm produce sales outlet. So in December 2021, an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application were submitted to facilitate the development of a residential condominium with a 10-story building and a 3-story townhouse block with a total of 203 units on the vacant subject lands. The applicant is requesting that the town official plan be amended to increase the permitted residential density in the HDR designation from 185 units per net hectare to 553 units per net hectare, and to refine the delineated boundary between the 3 existing land uses to implement the proposed development, and to establish the boundary of the vegetation protection zone, which is designed to act as a buffer to lands designated environmental protection that make up the eastern portion of the subject lands. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant is also requesting that the town's zoning bylaw be amended by rezoning a portion of the subject lands currently zoned institutional A to residential multiple 4, RM4, a portion zoned agricultural to RM4, and a portion zoned agricultural to environmental protection. This amendment will also establish minimum setbacks for the front, exterior side, and rear lot lines, reduce the minimum required parking supply from 1.5 spaces per unit to 1.05 spaces per unit. It will reduce the minimum required visitor parking supply from 0.25 spaces per unit to 0.15 spaces per unit. Reduce the minimum two-way drive aisle width within the proposed underground parking garage. Increase the maximum lot coverage from 30% to 49%, and there will be additional site-specific standards to implement the design. So approximately 0.58 hectares of the eastern portion of the subject lands that contain the proposed vegetation protection buffer to lands designated environmental protection and lands that are currently already designated environmental protection will be conveyed to the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. Durham Region has also identified a need for a road widening of 4.2 meters along Bailey Street East and an enlargement of the existing daylighting triangle at the southeast corner of the Bailey Street East and Pickering Beach Road intersection. These lands will be conveyed to the Durham Region. With these conveyances, the subject lands that are left have a total developable area of 0.46 hectares of the total area of 1.14 hectares. On the developable area, there will be an L-shaped 10-story building containing 199 dwelling units. This building is situated up against the intersection of Bailey Street East and Pickering Beach Road, with the building's principal facades fronting these roads. In addition, a block of 4 3-story townhouses are proposed to front Powers Valley Court. Site access for both the 10-story building and townhouses is proposed from Powers Valley Court. The proposed development provides for an internal central courtyard, which contains a residential drop-off pickup area, secondary residential entrance to the 10-story building, access to service areas, and access to the underground parking garage. The ground floor of the 10-story building includes 184 meters of amenity space in addition to residential mail and storage areas. Servicing areas, including the residential garbage room, moving room, and loading areas are located on the ground floor, all of which are internalized within the building. Additionally, 4 2-story base integrated residential units along Pickering Beach Road will have front door entrances at ground level of the building, as well as corridor access from within the building. The mezzanine level includes the upper levels of the 2-story base integrated residential units and a bicycle parking room. The balance of the building contains studio and 1 and 2 bedroom dwelling units. The proposed building presents a curved facade at the intersection of Bailey Street East and Pickering Beach Road, with the main residential entrance facing this intersection. To create pedestrian enclosure, a 2-story glazed street wall extends the full length of both street-facing frontages, a 3.5 meter setback from Bailey Street East, and a 3.3 meter setback from Pickering Beach Road also contributes to this enclosure. The proposal contributes to a pedestrian-friendly streetscape with amenity space located along the Bailey Street East frontage and entrances to street-level units along the Pickering Beach Road frontage. The visual scale and massing of the building is proposed to be reduced through the implementation of building step backs. The proposed 10-story building provides a 1 meter step back at the 2nd story and a 3 meter step back at the 8th story of the building along its Bailey Street East and Pickering Beach Road building facade. To appropriately transition the scale of the 10-story building south towards the existing street townhouses located on the south side of Powers Valley Court. There will be additional step backs of 6.4 meters at the second story, 5.3 meters at the sixth story, and 7.1 meters at the eighth story, which reduces visual impact on the existing townhouses that are on Powers Valley Court. So given the proposed setbacks and step backs, the proposed building height is set below a 45-degree angular plane, measured from the property lines of the adjacent street townhouses on the south side of Powers Valley Court. And then to further transition the scale and massing of the proposed building to existing townhouses on the north side of Powers Valley Court, a block of 4 3-story townhouses are proposed to be located between the existing townhouses and the proposed building. So the identified studies and reports were submitted in support of the development proposal and have been reviewed by town and regional staff and found to be satisfactory. In addition to these studies and reports, other technical documents such as architectural, engineering, and landscape plans were submitted in support of the proposed development, all of which were made available to the public on the town's IMO project webpage. The development applications were reviewed against the applicable provincial, regional, and town land use policy planning documents. The specific applicable policies are outlined and addressed in detail in the staff report. As per the report, the development proposal is consistent with the policies of the PPS, the growth plan, the regional official plan, and the Town of Ajax official plan. The town hosted a virtual public open house on November 30th, 2022. Approximately 36 residents attended who voiced various concerns, the main concerns being traffic potentially being generated by the proposed development and also existing traffic issues at the Bailey Street East, Salem Road South intersection and the Pickering Beach Road, Powers Valley Court intersection. The proposed parking supply was also a concern, as well as potential environmental impacts with the adjacent wetland to the east. As noted, a traffic study has been submitted in support of the proposed development, which addresses traffic volumes anticipated to be generated by the development and the proposed parking supply. The study concludes that the site-generated traffic is not expected to significantly impact operations on the adjacent road network and intersections. The reduced parking supply is considered appropriate and will be offset by the subject land being well serviced by local transit and the multi-use trail along Bailey Street adjacent to the site, which will encourage active transportation. The traffic impact study has been reviewed by town and region staff. Both have indicated that they are satisfied with the study. An environmental impact study was submitted in support of the proposed development. As mentioned, a buffer to the land's designated environmental protection is proposed to mitigate any impact the development may have on these lands. Both the buffer and land's designated environmental protection will be conveyed to the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority and kept in public ownership. This study has been reviewed by TRCA, found to be acceptable. Other concerns and comments from residents are available in attachment 3 of the staff report. I also will note that the town's clerk did receive a petition from area residents in objection to this proposal. So staff have carefully reviewed the proposal as well as comments and concerns received from the public and are of the opinion that the proposed development makes efficient use of underutilized land within the town, is transit supportive, and provides housing, intensification, and diversification to help contribute towards the town and regional goal of providing a mix of housing types and sizes. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications as outlined in the recommendations of the staff report. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to field any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey. I have Mayor Collier first.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Jeffrey. So the last couple of slides, you said there was environmental impact study, parking study, transportation study done, and you referred to the petition that's in our next item, which is correspondence. The town is satisfied with all of these studies?
Yes, these studies have been reviewed by the appropriate town staff, and we are in agreement with the findings of these studies. The region has also reviewed the reports are in agreement, as well as the TRCA, the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, regarding the environmental impact study.
Okay, so the region of Durham, the town of Ajax, and the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority, who I would have to say all have much more knowledge and expertise in this than I do. I'm just wondering, because the petition, and I didn't count, but it's somewhere around 150 names, I think. I can't see the addresses because they're blacked out, but they cite transportation and environmental impact. So that's why I'm asking these questions. Looking at the map or the site plan, it looks like the houses on Powers Valley Court are much closer to the environmental aspects of the property than the proposed development. Is that accurate?
I'm not going to speak too far out of hand here, though, but so the subject area of the development consists of meadows, the actual wetland, the Carruthers Creek wetland complex, yes, is located more eastward. I don't know the findings of, the staked area for those existing houses to the south. Do you have anything, Bruno?
Just through the chair to the mayor. That would have been evaluated through the review of that subdivision application. TRCA would have been circulated at that time. Your point in that the houses on Power Valley Court are closer or further into the environmental feature. Those lands were developed and went through a planning process, and planning process at that time determined that development of those lands was appropriate.
Okay, so I'm just looking at my Google Maps here, and 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 27 Power Valley Court, all back absolutely onto the environmental and the provincially significant wetland. I'm just looking at the applicant that's in front of us, and it does not look like it backs onto it at all. It looks like there's a significant buffer. So I'm just trying to understand, given that's the petition, the main thrust of the argument with the petition is the environmental impact. Yet those houses seem a lot closer than this development.
I would say
You're not able to confirm or deny.
I would say through the chair to the mayor, I would say all these lands are adjacent to the environmental features, the wetland or protected areas. This development's property extended further to the east, and those lands will be, as Mr. Jeffrey noted, will be conveyed to the ownership of the Toronto Conservation Authority.
Right, okay, so the wetlands will be preserved and held with TRCA. Okay, today we are just being asked to approve the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. We are not being asked to approve the site plan, which is any aspects of the building, whether it be snow, garbage, height, design, architectural features, any of that. That will be done later through site plan with the town. Is that accurate?
Through the chair to you, Mr. Mayor. So the zoning bylaw amendment actually establishes a site-specific building height, which is lower than what is permitted or established in the official plan. So, the applicant did have the opportunity to build up to 15 stories, but this zoning bylaw amendment will lock in the application at 42 meters and 11 stories.
Okay, what is the reasoning for that reduction if it's allowed under our OP?
Through the chair to the mayor, I would think that was a business decision decided by the applicant.
Okay.
So I would save your question for the applicant when their time comes.
Right. That is my question. Was this the applicant's decision or the town's decision? Okay, I will save those questions. Madam Chair, I'm happy to move this to the appropriate time, and I'd like to speak to the recommendations at that time, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Question to Mr. Jeffrey. What is the point of a minimum parking requirement if every time we come up here, we always have to reduce it? Like, the word minimum should mean like the base, right? And it seems like every time these applicants come up, there is like, oh, we need more space for whatever. Just like, when will we ever just say minimum is minimum? And that's like the absolute, like what we need.
Through the chair to you, Regional Councillor Lee. So those parking standards were established in zoning bylaw 95/2003, which is slightly dated at the moment. So these amendments are trying to take into account, new provincial direction as far as, supporting active transportation, reducing car use. So that's why we continuously see a reduction in.
But this is
minimum
the same
parking lots.
province that's like encouraging sprawl, are they not? Like this is through our various OPAs and whatnot. Like they're pretty sprawl heavy, which implies use of automobile. You shouldn't have to answer that. But ultimately, I just like it's incredibly frustrating. I've brought up a previous motion that was passed regarding the need for more street parking because we are building I have no problem with the density. That's great. I absolutely support that. But we should also not assume that these people don't have cars. And if we keep reducing these parking spots, then inevitably we create some of the problems that these residents are concerned about, and I myself am concerned about. This is not my ward, this is Councillor Bauer's ward, and she may have those same concerns, but it's just, I think if the province is serious about active transportation, then they will devote the money towards active transportation, devote the money towards transit, and set a set minimum that municipalities can follow. But right now, as it is, we keep going back and we keep reducing it to the point where you might as well not even put set minimums anymore because we're just going to reduce them anyways. So those are my comments. It's my only issue with this development and future developments is just the lack of parking. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Some of my questions or comments have been made, but speaking of traffic or transportation, I know that the petition, some of the petitioners did mention worries of increased traffic in the area. And so there was talk, I believe, at the open house and in the report about adding a left turn lane onto Powers Valley Court. So I would have a question of will that be done right away or after construction, or when do you anticipate that happening? And I know comments from residents were that a lot of people make U-turns onto Power Valley because of how busy that intersection is. So is it possible that we could put some no U-turn signs up as well?
Okay. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bauer. I am going to defer the first question over to potentially Deval. Will better answer that question regarding. But regarding so my understanding is that there is already the residents could speak to this, but that there is already a no U-turn sign south of Bailey Street East on Pickering Beach Road on the kind of the central median that is
yes,
not,
right at Bailey, sorry to interrupt you, right
Yes.
at Bailey and Pickering Beach.
just south
Yeah.
of.
So I'm actually talking about on Power Valley Road.
Okay. Okay, that's is not currently proposed in the development, but it's something we can take back to the team.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, can I just get clarification as to where specifically you're asking for a U-turn sign to go?
So my understanding from residents, from some of the emails I've received, is when drivers are trying to make, I want to say, a left turn onto Bailey from Pickering Beach, or
A left.
I forget. Actually, I'm not going to say that. What happens is because of the light, how busy the intersection of Bailey, Salem, Pickering Beach is, they will actually go through the intersection. So now they're going south.
Southbound on Pickering Beach.
Yeah.
Got
So
ya.
instead of trying to turn left onto Bailey from
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 coming
Salem.
down Salem, making a left on Bailey. They'll
Yep.
go through
They'll
the
go through the
intersection
lights.
at Bailey and do a U-turn at Powers Valley Court
They could do a
to
U-turn.
go back onto Pickering
Correct.
Beach, then to make a right-hand turn at
Correct.
Bailey. Okay.
So,
So you would like a U-turn sign at
like a
that,
no U-turn
that median, that break after
yeah,
the median?
if I understand what the residents, what the email is, and I think I do, that's part of the issue is extra traffic along that street, which now they're worried will become increased because of this development and just cause more commotion.
Yes, I understand now where you're,
My sense of direction is terrible.
No, that's okay. Once you got me in the car, then I was able to drive along with you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good.
No, we're ride sharing right now, Councillor Lee. Yes, I mean, we can look into that to see if there's an opportunity within the median for a U-turn. I think also the concern might have been from the residents of people actually using Power Valley Court, turning in there, maybe making turns in people's driveways,
That's
going
what I
down
mean.
to the end of the cul-de-sac and
Yep.
doing that. And maybe I'll save Mr. Deval Pandia from coming up to the microphone, but I think it pretty clearly states in the report that a left-hand turn lane will be part of the development of the
Yes.
site, and that will help facilitate turn movements onto Powers Valley Court to hopefully get vehicles out of that main travel lane coming southbound.
Perfect.
The unfortunate thing is we're going to have people that make those turns regardless of the signage. We're going to have people that make those maneuvers onto Powers Valley Court, especially if they're unfamiliar with the area and they're coming off the highway and maybe they meant to go north as opposed to south and this was their first opportunity to circle back. But we can look at the control mechanisms within that intersection to see if we can clean that up through the site plan approval process.
Perfect, thank you. And that left turn lane onto Powers Valley, will that be constructed?
It'll be part and parcel of the approvals and it'll have to be in prior to them occupying the building.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Mr. Jeffrey, I also wanted to ask you about the trees and how many trees. I know it's in the report, but maybe you could just remind us. Are we saving as many trees as we can?
I'm just going to flip to the appropriate page here on the staff report. But there will be additional plantings in the vegetation protection zone, so that will receive plantings. There will be, it was 74 trees is off the top of my head here was the amount that I'm thinking of as far as tree clearing.
Okay.
And then, yes, cash in lieu of tree compensation will be collected in addition to the plantings that will occur. in the
Okay. But that's, when we look at the trees, we're always looking at trying to preserve as many as we can, right?
Understood.
Okay, wonderful. And I don't know if this is a question for you now, but as we speak about the reduction of parking spaces in an effort to promote active transportation and less use of cars, I think the Transportation Demand Management Plan talks about incentivizing, maybe the developer incentivizing the buyers by things like go passes or, bike lockers, things like that. Is that a question for you, or should I ask that of the developer?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Bauer. Bruno is currently working with the applicant on that, so I think, you want to speak now, Bruno, or?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Through the chair, Bruno Scopacasa, Supervisor at Development Approvals. You are correct. We look at, through the TIS, the Traffic Impact Study, there is a section of that report that deals with traffic demands and reducing the use of vehicles. And one of the proposals is to provide Presto cards for residents. We're still working with the applicant to find out what a specific amount would be on those Presto cards. If the Presto cards are not loaded with any money for For the actual use of the card, it really doesn't do much when it comes to changing traffic or transportation habits.
Right. Okay. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
So those particular TDM measures to reduce the use of vehicles, those will be secured and included in the development agreement that's associated with the site plan application.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Bruno. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to see the increase of environmental protection as well. I know that was part of the petition. And thank you for the presentation. Those are my questions.
Councillor Henry?
Yes, through the chair. I just wanted to ask a question with regards to the main floor of this development. What was on the main floor? Was it residential?
There will be residential units, yes, on the main floor. Here, I'll just specify here. So fronting onto Powers Valley Court and Pickering Beach Road, yes, there will be residential units on both of those frontages. And then the north facing on Bailey Street East will be public amenity space.
Okay. No retail, no type of grocery store within this development, nothing like that, where you can come home and have a place to do shopping or doctor's offices, nothing like that, correct?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Henry. Yes, that's correct. There is no mixed use development proposed for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any further questions from council? My only question was, through me, to Director Romanowski. That's you. Is the intersection perhaps a light issue? Where I don't know if there's a left-hand turn light signal there. Like, is there something that we can upgrade in the light through that intersection?
Through the chair, back to yourself. It's a regional intersection. We can work with the region to look at the timing and the signal timing. There are advanced green in all four directions at this intersection. This intersection has, and I think probably mentioned within the report, it's already operating at a poor level. The additional traffic from this development, though, won't make it operate any worse than it already is. Sure, signal timing could be an issue, but when you start playing with the signal timing, then you're playing with the whole network in that particular area. So the region's at times hesitant to adjust even if it's a few seconds in either direction. But we think the controls or the measures with the signage and turn lanes, et cetera, should be enough to accommodate the development and to make turn movements feel as safe as possible within this area.
Okay, thank you. This is a public meeting, so if there is anyone in the audience that would like to speak, this is your opportunity to come up and speak. And if you'd like to state your name, and you would have 5 minutes to have a question or delegation.
Thank you very much. My name is Joyce Gibbons. Good evening, and thank you for having us here, allowing myself and others of like mind to speak here tonight. Let us all agree that we are here with open ears and open minds. Our concerns are genuine and factual based on our living in the area and awareness of our environment. I will state that we are not opposed to change or a development that is in alignment with the character of the neighborhood and respectful of the eco-sensitive location that we call 101 Pickering Beach Road. The amendment applications, the OPA 21-A3ZBLAZ5/21, state the subject lands are currently zoned for agriculture and industrial use and are adjacent to the environmentally protected Carruthers Creek watershed. The developers have applied to amend the zoning bylaw to the RM4 and to increase the residential density from 185 to a whopping 553 per hectare. The request to delineate the boundaries between the applicable lands use designation and refine them to reflect the proposed buildings is vague and could leave the environmentally protected area vulnerable to ambiguous, unmentioned high-density usage. The proposal of a 10-story building, 198 residential units, is not only inappropriate and inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood, but it will also result in a multitude of hazards in the community. The site-generated traffic is anticipated to add 77 to 79 two-way trips each peak period to the street that only has 27 residences and only one way in and out. During heavy traffic, Croker Drive is used as a thoroughfare to circumvent the congestion of Bailey. Powers Valley Court is constantly, as mentioned, used as an illegal U-turn to avoid waiting for the southbound lane signal from Salem onto Bailey East. The proposed new short left turn lane from Pickering Beach Road onto Powers Court will only make it more inviting for drivers to attempt this U-turn. The forecasted decline in level of service E and F and increased volume in traffic will cause an uptick in vehicle accidents and pedestrian injuries. As recorded in 2018, Ajax is rated the 6th least safe community to drive in, and it is observed to have the 2nd highest insurance premiums in Ontario, with a 42% increase in collision claims over the course of a 10-year study. The disregard to provide the bare minimum of on-site parking will cause major issues to our cul-de-sac. The deficiency of 107 spaces will lead to street parking and create unsafe congestion on Powers Valley Court, where my children play. The parking justification study still lacks appropriate contents as to why an exception for this reduced parking supply should be permitted, as was mentioned earlier in Council. It is seemingly more evident that the town of Ajax did not have the infrastructure to sustain major increases in higher traffic volumes. The majority of Ajax residents commute by personal vehicle to work and not only in the Ajax region, but outside of the Durham region as well. With the Ontario government looking to carve up the Greenbelt for urbanization, the proximity of this development so close to Carruthers Creek will be used as a precedent for future developers to encroach into our already jeopardized Greenbelt and justify continued urban sprawl. It could be argued that this development is needed housing. However, it comes to the fact that the town of Ajax has the highest population density of any municipality in the Durham region, with our neighbors Whitby and Pickering falling way below us. The risk of unattractive urban development such as this will threaten our sense of community and our identity as a place that values the environment. We simply become the dormitory of Durham region, a place to eat, sleep, and leave to enjoy the culture and amenities available elsewhere. Poorly planned communities will not solve the housing crisis. A balance must be struck. Council, it is upon your careful deliberation we ask you to weigh as to whether or not this size of development will be in the best interest of our community. I do thank you for your listening ears and consideration of our concernment. Also note that any of the information gathered in regards to the parking, the traffic volume, driving safety, and other statistics can be made available for you tonight. We have them for you. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Gibbons. Does anyone from council have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Councillor Henry.
Through the chair, thank you for your presentation. My question is where you mentioned second highest Is that correct?
Yes, it
And
is.
where is that information coming from?
I'm going to ask one of our community members, Michael Product, to come up, and he will give you that information and where it's coming from. Thank you.
Hello, Council. That information was gathered through rates.ca, which is an insurance monitoring website. It's also confirmed with a couple other websites. We also used a study done by Allstate to track that Ajax is the 6th highest.
The sixth highest,
Oh, I'm
through the
sorry.
chair, sixth highest in Ontario?
In collision claims in Ontario.
Collision claims in Ontario. And is that information up for interpretation?
That was well. The information was gathered through Allstate, through their study that they created called the 10th annual Allstate Safe Driving Study, and this was done in 2018, and it took place over the course of a 10-year study. So it measured Ajax as having a 42% increase in collision claims in that time, and ranked Ajax as the 6th least safe community to drive in. So the numbers are not of my opinion, they're just being relayed through Allstate's study.
Okay, thank you for that. Much appreciated.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Is there anyone else present here that would like to speak?
Madam Chair, I have a number of registered delegates. These include Michael Parada and Claudia Nemhart, who have indicated that they would address council in person.
In person? Okay.
In actuality, we're all together in the team. I may present presentations on behalf.
On behalf, okay. I do see, is this an individual online that would like to speak now, Mohammed? Okay. You now have the mic to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. No, I just want to echo some of the concerns that were voiced during the previous open house meeting, which I don't think was clearly captured in the little assessment that was presented to you a little earlier. Our main concern was the safety of all the residents in our street at the moment. It's hard to tell from the diagrams and all the verbiage there, the actual proximity of the building to the street level, and how unsafe it would be to see approximately at least like about 130 cars or so coming in and out of that tiny little street entrance. It's already like congested during the rush hours, and we already have a hard time getting in and out of that location. Just to have another 100 or so vehicles coming in and out poses a great risk to the safety of the residents of this neighborhood. Like I said, the diagrams there do not do justice for exactly what is present. I would encourage the councillors of this town to actually come visit Parsons Valley and see for yourselves what the situation will look like with an entrance to that building right on our street. It is going to be a dangerous situation for all of us. I'm not sure why that's not being addressed at the moment. And if they're going to add even more units to this location, it's just going to increase the risk even more. So that's what I want to highlight. And like I said, if you can kindly pay us a visit and see for yourselves what the situation will be like, I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rafiq. I appreciate your comments. I missed somebody. I can't even see you behind the podium. Did you have your hand up that you wanted to speak?
That's the.
Is that the proponent?
Yes. Ma'am.
Okay, then you're next. Oh, did anyone have any questions for Mr. Rafiq? No? Okay. Then I'm going to call the proponent to come up. Sorry, I apologize. I lost you in the podium.
Madam Chair, before we move to the proponent, we have a number of other members online that would like to speak. Yes.
See that?
They have to raise their hand, but they haven't done so. But I can flag them.
Okay.
All right. So the next individual that's participating remotely that has registered to provide a delegation to council is Brian Wires. Brian, if you can hit the button in the middle of your screen that appears to be a head with lines emanating from it. And there you are.
Thank you very much for hearing me. I wanted to just mention that and reiterate what Mohammed just said about coming out to the neighborhood and actually seeing what this parcel of land looks like and what the intersection looks like. I commute through this area on a daily basis. The concerns of the residents of Powers Valley are very much real. I live just over on the other side on Angier. When I looked at the traffic report that was presented and is available as part of the documentation for this project, it seems to me that even with the assumption that the vehicles, the parking spaces for the residential units is going to be sufficient, which is, I think, 233 spaces, the number of people actually expected to use those vehicles seems to be very low, about 25% or so of the vehicles parked there are expected to actually commute as a part of that morning rush out of the neighborhood. It's a very small street, and the intersection is very close to Salem and Bailey, which is a very busy intersection. And I do have significant concerns about what seems to be an overly optimistic estimate of what the impact is going to be, and believe that it is going to be challenging for vehicles through that neighborhood. Is going to take that very quiet cul-de-sac and turn it into something very, very busy, and it's going to be very difficult to get in and out of that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions to the resident? No? Okay.
Madam Chair, there are no further registered delegates.
Okay, now we'll go to the proponent. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Lindsay Dale Harris. I'm a partner with the firm of Bousfields, and we are here on behalf of the applicant. I had just a very few things to say to you this evening because there has been a very thorough and thoughtful presentation to you by your staff. And I'd like to thank staff for their presentation. I'd also like to thank staff and both town staff and regional staff, because we have worked very closely with them since the application was submitted in order to resolve many of their concerns. And I'd just like to address two particular things which were raised by the public and important considerations. The first is transportation concerns. A professional report was prepared by the applicant and submitted to the town for review. It was reviewed by your planning staff independently. It was also reviewed by regional planning staff. We spent a great deal of time trying to determine what the best place was for an access, what the best place was for the turning movements going into and out of Powers Ferry Court. And this is the location that has been identified by your staff, by regional staff, and by our professional transportation consultant as the best location. In terms of the parking figures and the amount of parking provided on site, that too was reviewed carefully by our transportation consultant, by your transportation staff, and by regional staff. So that has been looked at very, very closely by professionals independently. So I think we recognize that Bailey is a busy street. We recognize that there are existing problems today, but I think the solutions that are provided in terms of the turning movements and the location of the driveway access are the best possible locations given the designation of this site and its location on a major transportation corridor. So that's dealing with transportation. Secondly, in terms of dealing with the environment, we have worked very closely with the Conservation Authority. We identified the top of bank. We identified a buffer area. We are identifying lands which have to, with the plantings, additional trees have to be planted all along that buffer area. And the Conservation Authority has determined that this is actually a very good location. We have provided the buffer, and there will be a significant dedication of land privately owned today. The Carruthers Creek lands will come into public ownership. So yes, there will be an approval for an apartment on a site currently designated for high-density residential, but more importantly, a significant area of the entire site will be dedicated to the public for the public sector, to the town. So the long-term protection of these lands, as I think one of the residents had mentioned, we don't want to be chipping away at the green belt. We're not chipping away, we are dedicating significant lands into public ownership. And that has been done with the Conservation Authority. So in terms of building height, I think there was a question of, could this building be higher? Yes, it could be higher. We think it's an appropriate height. Could the building be set back differently from the adjacent residential? I think your planning staff showed you that we met the angular planes. We provided a significant amount of green space at grade so we can blend with the existing development. And we're very proud of the development that we are presenting to you this evening and that your staff have supported. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
The applicant. Seeing none. I have a motion on the floor right now. It is moved by Mayor Collier, seconded by
Madam Chair.
What now?
Mayor Collier has entered the speakers list.
Yes, he already told me.
Okay.
Thank you. Seconded by Regional Councillor Lee, and yes, Mayor Collier would like to speak to this. Hear me. Oh, there we go. Mayor Collier, we can't hear you.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Better? Okay. I don't actually have questions to the applicant, but thank you for your presentation. I'll move this, and I just want to speak to the reason why, because I know by moving this, it's not going to be popular with those that signed the petition and those that spoke tonight. And I absolutely respect your positions and the comments that you made. But the simple fact is we have a positive staff report here in front of us. This development is supported by our town official plan, our regional official plan, which is a policy statement, the growth plan. It submitted about a dozen different studies that were done, everything from traffic to environmental, and all that passed different inspections, peer reviews, and all the rest. So the simple fact that nobody on council is an engineer or a planner or a lawyer, we have to listen to the and recommendations of those professionals that do have this expertise. So for those reasons, I just want to speak to a couple other things that some of the questions that I asked about the petition. I mean, we don't have much greenfield space left in Ajax. We're going to be seeing more and more and more infill type developments like this. And I understand a homeowner and a home purchase is probably the biggest purchase people are ever going to make in their lives. And it's personal. And I understand, I realize how it's personal. But I hope that residents can understand that if previous councils, and I was one, had taken the same position when residents pointed out things like traffic and community safety and that type of thing, the other houses on this court wouldn't be there. Because you all back right onto the environmental feature, and you are actually closer to this than this development will be. Those lands will be conveyed to the TRCA. Looking at the map, I can very easily see the closest house to this is much closer to the environmental feature than this property. So again, we have to listen to the experts, and the experts are saying this is appropriate. The other thing is we have a housing crisis, and we can't just say and realize we have a housing crisis and sign a pledge to the province, but then not approve developments on major roads that are transit oriented it makes us hypocrites. I mean, this is what this area is for. I was thinking of asking a question of why was the height reduced from 15 to 11 stories, but I mean, for the residents around, I think that's a good thing. I think you would appreciate that. So I think that's a concession. But for those reasons, I'm going to support this and would like to see shovels on the ground and see this moving forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to, I believe it's be Director Romanowski. So, if I'm not mistaken, things have changed since the last time we did something like this last term. What if, can you play me through what happens if the residents want to take this appeal further? So let's say council approves this, but residents still have complaints. They could take it to the OLT, but if I'm not mistaken, the OLT system has changed a bit.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Lee, and I might get Bruno Scopacasa to go through some of the unique elements or the changes to the OLT, but yeah, any decision, planning decision rendered by council is subject to appeal. Bruno, would you be able to maybe just highlight any of those changes as you're more in the inner workings of the appeal process with various applications?
Through the chair, these applications were submitted before a lot of the changes happened through Bill 109. So it's subject to some older sort of conditions
Bruno,
that were in place.
Bruno, could you just speak right
Sorry.
into your mic? Thanks.
Sorry about that. So it's subject to some older conditions. So there is the ability for residents to appeal the application if they choose to do so. And that application would come through the municipality and then be redirected to the OLT for processing.
So I think you would know this very well. So last term, one of the biggest developments that was approved by this council, or by council, excuse me, was the Medallion development, which was 1,304 units. And for those you residents who are watching, those residents went through the OLT process, and if I'm not mistaken, they lost their appeal because they just couldn't. If I'm not mistaken, they couldn't get a lawyer ultimately to take the case. I just, my concerns remain ultimately with the parking, but I think overall, I think I'm the only renter on council still, so no one knows more about the housing crisis than myself and my family, and so it'd be incredibly hypocritical of me to all of a sudden, complain about the housing crisis, but vote against this. I think we need to do a better job, appealing to the province to really set these harder parking limits, but also to set more clarity as to what their vision is for planning and development, because on the one hand, as we're learning, they say they want intensification, and on the other hand, they don't. And it really just seems to be based on the mercy of the whims of, certain ministers and this government. So I will support this amendment, though I, again, continue to have serious problems with the way the province is sending mixed messages to residents. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just reasons for supporting this is we do have a housing crisis, as Regional Councillor Sterling Lee just said. And, my kids had to move out of Ajax in order to find the kind of housing that we're starting to see now. So it gives options for first-time home buyers. It gives options for people who can't afford to buy but have to rent. It gives options to people who want to downsize. So it's difficult because in a perfect world, you get it all, but there is no door number 3. You either say yes or no to these things. There's also the very difficult process of, the trickle down from the province and the responsibilities that we have in creating 17,000 units over 10 years, which I think now is 8.5 years. So those are the reasons why I'll be supporting this, but I definitely respect the comments of the residents tonight. And just for the record, we're residents too. We drive in that area all the time. My daughter's got friends down there, so I'm through that corner, and it is busy. So there's more work to be done for signaling and making sure it's all safe when it's done. Thank you so much, Chair.
Any other questions or comments? If not, the vote can be open. That motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence. Do we have any polls for correspondence? If not, I have a motion moved by Councillor Moran, seconded by Councillor Bauer, that the report dated April 17th containing items of correspondence be received for information. Vote is open. It's taking the slow route. Oh. Did we time out? No? Okay. Oh, okay. It passes. All right. I have a motion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Mayor Collier, that the community fairs and a planning of April 3rd be adopted. Any questions or comments? Vote is open. And that passes. Thank you very much. I have a motion on the General Governance Committee moved by Councillor Bauer, seconded by Councillor Moran, that the General Governance Committee report dated April the 11th be adopted. Any questions or comments? The vote is open. And that passes. Thank you so much. I have a motion for departmental reports, moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Regional Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Henry. Do we have a presentation or no? Is there any polls on the departmental reports at all? Yep. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Chair. So, I'm sorry, my mind is everywhere tonight. I just had a question about 8.4.1. That's where we are, right? So it is only, this contract is only covering a certain part of the town? So what happens with the rest of the town?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, the balance of the town is cut by town staff.
Okay. So this was just, we just needed more help. That's what the purpose of the contract is.
We've actually had this service in place for approximately 10 years. This is a renewal of that contract. So what's happened is as newer communities have been built over the last decade or so, where we've sort of included the smaller parkettes, so not necessarily our neighborhood parks. The larger neighborhood parks are maintained by staff, but the smaller parkettes that have been introduced within new subdivisions and shrub beds, playgrounds associated with those parkettes have been delivered by a contracted service. So as we assume certain parkettes within those newer areas, they get added and absorbed into that contracted service.
Okay. So the other parkettes, for example, the Love Parkette in Ward 3 would be Town of Ajax staff.
Correct. It would be town staff, but it's important to note that contracted or town staff, it's the same level of service.
Understood. I believe it. Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, the vote is open. And it passes. Thank you very much. Have a motion on stormwater fee and credit policy / bylaw update, moved by Councillor Moran, seconded by Regional Councillor Lee. Is there any questions or comments on this? If none, the vote's open. Passes. Thank you very much. Regional Council reports. Regional Council, do you have anything to report? I know my works meeting was 12 minutes long and my transit meeting was 15. So It was a slow week at the region. So fast report. Any questions on our reports? If none, the vote is open. Okay. We're flying. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Now we have a few motions that we need to deal with. First is on the drinking water fountain for public spaces. It's moved by Councillor Bauer, seconded by Councillor Morin. Councillor Bauer, you have the floor.
There. Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to bring this motion forward. You know, I kind of think that this is an easy motion. Our parks, I think, are an extension of we own them, they're Town of Ajax facilities. Our Town of Ajax facilities offer water filling stations or water fountains, so I think it's a natural progression to offer them in our outdoor facilities, especially when the parks that have access to water. The motion states that it's only for those areas. So I think it really makes sense. You know, Regional Councillor Dyes mentioned that she would see on a canoe, you know, at the waterfront on a canoe ride, just hundreds of disposable water, like plastic water bottles. So it just got me thinking about if we had water fountains in our parks, in some of them, we wouldn't have that problem, or it would certainly help decrease that problem. We offer shade, and you know, speaking of climate change, really, you know, we offer shade in our parks. Let's offer water in our parks too. So I think it's a simple motion that staff, thank you very much for helping me figure out that it can be done. And then, and thanks to Councillor Tyler Morin, who had a great suggestion that I'm sure he'll talk about. But the one comment I wanted to make is, as far as the design goes, I know I say drinking water fountains, and in my mind, I have, you know, the old school one where you had the spout. But I know because of today's world, that may not be comfortable for everyone, where we have the actual water filling, like a tap kind of thing, where someone could fill their bottle if they choose to do it that way. So that's more a comment for design. Can that be considered? Or do we actually have to put that in this motion?
Through the chair, that would be a design consideration that we would look at through the design process. We don't need it added to the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope my colleagues will support my motion. Thank you.
Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bauer, for including me in this motion. It's nice to put something together that residents can actually see, and I know that many of the residents that walk after dinner every day and run and jog will, you know, like this. I think it's a good thing. The refilling stations, I agree, rather than the old school kind of drink right out of the tap. So again, that'll be a design feature. And then I had brought up that there are so many pets in Ajax. I believe there's over 60% of the households have a dog or a cat. So there's a lot of dogs that are walking out, and this design can be also considered, hopefully, my question to Director Meredith, that there's a little plate at the bottom, that there's a little faucet at the bottom for pets to drink as well. I think would be another added feature, you know, kind of like as you're designing it. But that's just, again, we can look at that in the design process, but I think that would serve us well and speak to thousands of residents who have doggies and to walk them regularly. So yeah, happy to support this, and hopefully we can get our councils on board as well. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Lee.
Just a question. So for a splash pad, is that water not drinkable? Just like in theory, like is it chlorinated or is it just the same water you use in a tap?
The water, it does go through a filtration. Well, it depends. Whether there's two different types. There's a splash pad where the water is released and outlet directly into a management system such as Waterfront, and then there are circulating systems as well which go through a chlorinated system. So there are both scenarios for a splash pad. What we would look at is in areas where we do have splash pads, we would be able to have a water line available. We would have water access to allow for water stations in the vicinity of where we have a splash pad.
Great. I guess I'll stop drinking the splash pad water. Thank you, Chair.
I know I've had a few requests for in dog parks, if there was the availability for water also, especially in the warm weather. I don't know if that's a possibility in any of the considerations that I think we have, 15 new ones coming up?
Yeah, there's a number of considerations that we're going to be looking at in our parks as we retrofit our parks. So where we do have water, where we are introducing more and more leash-free areas, it'll be more of a sort of comprehensive look that we'll be looking at the design elements that would go into the parks. Some of the leash-free parks that we currently have, where they're somewhat isolated and there is no water within the vicinity, would be costly and somewhat limited in terms of the ability to introduce water into those locations. But some of the newer parks, and I'll use Exeter as an example, one that we've got in the design process for next year, which will feature a leash-free park, it'll feature a splash pad. There's an obvious tie-in to ensuring that water is available for both. So that would be more of an integrated design when we look at sort of the parks on a go-forward basis.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Through the chair to Mr. Meredith, I just wanted to ask, it's how many parks that we're going to be doing this with? 2 brand new ones, is that correct?
There are a couple of retrofit parks that are identified, and this does come out of recommendations within the Recreation and Parks Master Plan as well. So I'll use as an example, I'd mentioned Exeter Park. We're looking at the Ajax Community Center soccer field conversion, a future magnum opus community park, the potential for the Crothers Marsh Pavilion Park at a future date. There are retrofit park locations at Nottingham as an example as well, potentially Forest Ridge. So there are areas in basically all 3 wards where we would see over the next 10 years that we will be looking to invest and upgrade those facilities, and we'll look to integrate these design elements from leash-free parks to shade shelters to water features or water fountains into those designs. So we're taking a look at that in all of our park retrofits.
And through the chair, when you say 2 new parks, will the newly named Joe Dixon Park be included?
I'll have to double check to see if there is, again, that park has been awarded contract, or construction is underway. I'd have to confirm the access or availability of water to add to that area. I'm not 100% certain, but that's something that I can take a look at.
I respectfully request if you could, thank you.
Thank you. Vote is now open. And that passes. Thank you. Okay, next motion is on the waterfront parking for veterans, moved by Councillor Morin and seconded by Councillor Bauer. Councillor Morin?
Thank you so much. So I think most people listening and most people in Ajax probably know about the waterfront parking plan and how from May 15th to September 15th, the parking management plan will be in effect at the Ajax waterfront. And it's to manage increased parking on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, and public holidays. And if you're an Ajax resident, you can sign up and you don't have to pay the fee. And if you're there during the week, you don't have to pay the fee, even if you're not an Ajax resident. With all that said, our veterans, who have dedicated, a time in their life or even longer to either serve, in whatever capacity they serve. But any way you cut it, it's a gesture to the veterans. If you have a veterans license plate, you will no longer have to go through the process of signing up. So if the plate has the poppy on it, then you're exempt from having to sign up for the waterfront parking. It includes all veterans, and just a gesture for this council to veterans and everyone who is at the Legion and everyone who's served our country, and asking for council support on this, as I think it would be a nice thing for us to do. Thank you so much.
Councillor Bauer as a seconder, did you have anything?
Deputy Mayor, no, not really. I think this is an excellent motion. Thank you to Councillor Tyler Moran for letting me second it. I think it is the least that we could offer. Thank you.
Thank you. If no other questions, the vote's open. Oh, and yes, I forgot to recognize Mayor Collier has a conflict.
Can I do a rare comment?
Sure.
I may have misspoke. I just want to be clear that it includes all veterans. It doesn't include all veterans, sorry. It includes all veterans who have veterans plates. So you have to have a veterans plate for you to have this distinction. So if you are a veteran, get yourself a plate, I guess. Or if you already have one, you're good. Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor, for letting me back in.
The next motion is a call to the province, the provincial government to end homelessness in Ontario. This was originally going to be moved by Regional Councillor Dyes. In her absence, Councillor Bauer will be moving. Is that okay to do that? Yeah. Councillor Bauer will be moving this. I am seconding it. So Councillor Bauer, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. It's my honor. I know this is very important to Regional Councillor Dyes, so it is my honor to move it. We know the dire situation across the country with regards to homelessness. It's a problem that we are all seeing, we are all worried about, we are all talking about, we are all trying to figure out what to do. So I think Ajax has done tremendous work to date, and this motion calls, on the government. We support AMO's request that the provincial government urgently acknowledge that homelessness in Ontario is a social, economic, and health crisis. We commit to ending homelessness in Ontario, and we work with AMO and a broad range of community, health, Indigenous, and economic partners to develop, resource, and implement an action plan to achieve this goal. And a copy of this motion be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Minister of Health, the MPP for Ajax, the Regional Chair for for Durham, and to AMO. So I will leave it at that. I ask for my colleagues' support.
Yeah, I think an important point is the provincial government is working hard at housing. However, I don't think that no matter how you call it, affordable, attainable, nonprofit, that it is going to address the homelessness situation. It is unique. It requires a great deal of time and patience and a lot of resources. And it's not one municipality's job or ability to fix it. It becomes a multi-level government to be able to address. These are very, very complex issues, and the current bill to have affordable housing is not going to address this at all. And so we do need the help of the provincial government. I was talking with Mayor Carter in Oshawa just not too long ago, and we're number 2 in Durham. They're number 1. It is astounding to me what the city of Oshawa goes through on a daily basis. And I don't know how they have managed to function the way they have. But again, this is an extremely important topic. AMO is having a 2-day symposium on it in the beginning of May that I think many of the councillors here are going to be going to. And we continue to highlight it. I'm at the Ontario Big City Mayors AGM at the end of the week, and I know that it is a topic of discussion at that too. So it's not one municipality that's dealing with it. We are all dealing with it, and we all need help with it. So it's very important. Anyway, the vote's open. Oh, I'm sorry. Regional Councillor Lee, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add that, the homelessness situation right now, it's a really nuanced issue that goes beyond just, people are using drugs, ergo they're homeless. There are completely we'll call it more legal ways that people have become homeless, whether they lost their jobs. We mentioned the price of housing. When I first moved into Ajax about 8 years ago, I paid $1,800 for a 3-bedroom house, and that was an acceptable price. I'm looking right now, and $1,800 gets me a 1-bedroom basement. So we can only imagine people with families who can't afford to live in any sort of, legal housing right now. Our shelter is not just single white males, it's also families, and that is an incredibly disturbing fact that we all need to address. And so I absolutely support this motion. We have to come together. We have to start looking for different avenues to solve this problem, because right now whatever we're doing isn't working and the problem's only getting worse. So fully support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Henry.
I fully support this motion, and I want to elaborate on something that Regional Councillor Lee said about it's not just those that are on drugs. Speaking from personal experience, women that are escaping intimate partner violence often find themselves in these situations to no fault of their own, because they have nowhere else to go. And I also know this from personal experience. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. The vote is open. And that passes. Thank you very much. The next motion is to establish a provincial short-term rental system, moved by Regional Councillor Lee and seconded by Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. So I brought this up last term, just with the beginning of just like regulating this market, and it goes beyond just any single municipality. I think ultimately it goes back to the province. We regulate hotels, we regulate taxis, and right now we have this growing market of short-term rentals that are impacting current rents, current market rates. And more importantly, it's affecting our neighbors, because right now what we're seeing is an unregulated market where people can just list their homes for short-term rentals and then not really put any provisions to ensure the safety of the occupants, the safety of the neighbors around them. And that is absolutely unacceptable, because we are starting to see some dangerous situations that could absolutely use some dedicated standards to ensure the safety of our residents. So that is the motive behind this. I'm going to keep screaming from the rooftops that this area needs focus on and needs to be fixed. And I'm looking to the province to take a leadership, since housing is a big priority for them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lee, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through the chair. Councillor Lee and I have met with a group of residents a while back with regards to short-term rentals and seeing how it has affected their lives. I want to thank Councillor Lee, Regional Councillor Lee, because at the beginning, my mindset was very much that it was the municipality's job to deal with this. And through our conversations, he really led me to see that we do need the province in on this, because one, we need the funding. That's a big thing. We can't ask our municipality to take on this type of financial burden with regards to adding more bylaw staff to deal with this issue without the funding that goes with it. So I would like to thank him for that. And to the residents out there that have come to us and asked for this, we've heard you loud and clear. Thank you.
Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. And I won't be supporting this one. I'll just speak to it quickly. I haven't had a single resident reach out to me on anything like this. We discussed this in our strategic planning session, and we decided that we weren't going to make this a priority of this council because it just wasn't really a thing here in Ajax. The second reason is that we have no way to enforce this, as Councillor Henry said. I mean, making bylaws and which is what this would come down to, unless the province is going to change the law, which I don't think they can in this case because it's federal. we would have no way to enforce it. I can't support a motion that I think is probably not going to go anywhere and really isn't going to have any effect here. So I'll be voting no on this one. Thank you.
Is there any other comments on this? Seeing none, the vote is open. Thank you. The next motion is expanding the community safety zones, moved by Mayor Collier and seconded by myself. Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just open by saying this motion doesn't do anything that I really want it to do. And what that is, I really want this to be able to allow us to use automatic speed enforcement on every street in Ajax. Because we all, as councillors and me as mayor, get calls constantly. And Councillor Crawford, you spoke the other day about the number of speeding complaints you had when you were knocking on the doors. And it's ridiculous. And automatic speed enforcement has been proven through the studies. I believe the number was 40%, but it might have been a 60% reduction in speeds. I don't recall, but very effective and the most effective thing that we have, more effective than I think all the traffic calming measures we use combined. When we first did automatic speed enforcement, we limited ourselves by saying a community safety zone had to be a school zone. I believe that was what we said. And I think my intent on this motion was to remove that condition. And in rereading the motion today, it says basically that we're just going to make all school zones community safety zones. So I just have a quick question and a possible amendment through you, Chair, to Mr. Duval, if he's here, or to Mr. Romanowski, is with this motion, if it passes today, are we still completely limited to only being able to use automatic speed enforcement in school zones without council bringing a further amendment later to open it up?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, Duval is here this evening, so he can respond to your question.
Through chair to Mayor Collier, unfortunately, I couldn't hear your question. Would you please repeat your question, sir?
My question is, based on the wording of this motion today, are we still restricted going forward to only having community safety zones in school zones?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The community safety zones can be identified in not only elementary school zones, but major pedestrian generators where the public safety is of special concern.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that this was going to do what we intended to do based on the wording. So thank you, Mr. Pandya. I'll just speak to it quickly, Chair. Our automatic speed enforcement program, I think, has been very effective in slowing people down. I'd like to dispel a couple of myths. I saw today on social media that one of our machines has been vandalized and spray painted, and some of the comments were completely inaccurate. Things like, this is just a cash grab and we just want the money. Well, newsflash, we don't get the money. We haven't received 1 penny in revenues. That goes into the POA accounts of the region, and we have not seen a penny. The other myth is this hasn't cost us a penny. We are being reimbursed 100% by the region of Durham for our cost of these machines. So we're not wasting tax dollars, as some commented improperly. That is not, those are not accurate comments. This is about safety. And we look at other municipalities like Toronto who have doubled the amount of automatic speed enforcement cameras they've had because they work. They slow people down in the areas we need to slow them down. And this motion expands the number of areas that we can use them in so we can have more effect. I do wish the Highway Traffic Act, if the province could amend it, to free up some of the restrictions, like all the signs and the costs in that respect, and make it easier for us. Because quite honestly, I don't understand why we have to warn people that we're going to try and slow them down and stop speeding, but that's the way the Highway Traffic Act is. But I also don't understand how we are so limited in our tickets, where the City of Toronto seems to be having an open field and be able to do what they want. I don't like the 2 different sets of rules for 2 different municipalities. But I would ask for your support today on this because I think this is a very effective tool and can go a long way to helping make our neighborhoods more safe. Thank you, Chair.
Can't turn myself on. Sorry. I'll just say that sitting on Vision Zero, the region 100% says this is the most effective way to slow people down. They've tried everything just like all the other municipalities, and this is the most effective. I think it is almost 60%. Speeding is the only thing I heard at the doors. Not taxes, not anything else. It was speeding, road calming, whether it's perceived or not, whether people are actually speeding or not, people's perception is a reality. And I think that even just being able to expand these to community parks, playgrounds, community centers, hospitals, senior residence areas, generally located where public safety is of a special concern, does open it up a little bit more for us to identify certain streets. And I definitely am in favor of this. I wanted to also say that when our ASC cameras are damaged, there's no cost to the municipality to have it fixed. It is fixed completely by the people that own the machines. We only rent them. So damaging an ASC camera does not cost the town of Ajax a single dime. Councillor Morin.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I completely agree with the comments and from the mover and the seconder on this motion, and happy to support. Very happy to see that we can have a more comprehensive layout, get more streets covered. There's, in our ward alone, Ward 1, there's 100 streets that need ASC cameras. Obviously, we have to be realistic, but I think it's kind of a big deal that we're actually coming through with facts saying that this is the most effective, form of traffic calming. From the day I became a councillor, I've been working on traffic calming, and all the doors we all knocked on, I'm sure my council colleagues would agree. People talk about speed; they're worried about it. So happy to support this, and glad it's coming forth. And I'm glad Mr. Pandya cleared saying that we could go beyond the school zones. I don't want to start another conversation, but it seems like sometimes in a school zone there isn't that much speeding because people are all parked, so they go through slow anyway. So we'd like to be able to expand it beyond that, and hopefully that we can get all that done. Thank you so much. Happy to support.
Any other questions, comments? Votes open. Thank you very much. I have a motion that the bylaw numbers 11-2023 to 1920-2023 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. That is moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Morin. Any questions or comments? Votes open. Thank you very much. Any notice of motions? Any new business or announcements? Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crawford. We're a week away, Tuesday, April 25th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at McLean Community Center. Hope you can all join Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford, Deputy Mayor, and myself, Councillor Rob Tyler Morin, with special guest Durham Regional Police Service. So it'll prompt, I'm sure, a great conversation. It's our first in-person community meeting in a very long time. So just a reminder that it is a live in-person event. And it's April 25 at 7 p.m. at the Community Room 1, McLean Community Center, 95 McGill Drive. If you follow us on social media, there'll be more reminders coming up. But hopefully we see everyone out next Tuesday. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's going to be this Friday is going to be Eid. So to all our Muslim brothers and sisters across the town and the region, we just want to say a heartfelt Eid Mubarak, and we hope that this Ramadan was fruitful for reflection and family. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, let's see now. I got a motion here. What? Oh, somebody put their name in. Regional Councillor Lee.
We like to copy Ward 1, so we are also having an in-person ward meeting on May 9th at the Audley Rec Center. It'll be from 7 to 8. Do we have special guests? We're supposed to have Durham Region Police, but apparently they committed to Ward 1. Yeah, we're literally copying everything you do. And maybe a celebrity's going to be there. Who knows? You know, maybe, yeah. Alec, yeah. Yeah. So take that.
Okay. I have a motion that the bylaw number 20-2023 be being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council and the corporation of the town of Ajax at this meeting held on April the 17th be read a first, second, and third time and passed. That would be moved by Regional Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Bauer. Are there any questions or comments? The vote is open. I've gone very fuzzy. I must be past my bedtime. It wants to shut me off. Thank you. And that the April 17th, 2023 meeting of Ajax Town, the Council of Ajax, Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Bauer. The vote is open. Oh my God. Please pass.